All right, we'll go ahead and get started. I just want to welcome everyone today to the Launch Grant Video Competition Info Session for the Campus Kitchens project. So today we're just going to have a brief overview of the Campus Kitchens project and then discuss more specifics about this grant. So let's just go ahead here and get started. All right, so first of all, we're going to just start with what is a campus kitchen. So we're a national nonprofit organization that was established in 2001. We're empowering student leaders across the country to create really innovative and sustainable solutions to hunger on their campuses and in their communities. And so while each campus kitchen is unique, they all do some form of these three basic things that we'll discuss. So first of all, every campus kitchen is doing some sort of food recovery and recovering food that would otherwise have gone to waste. So that could be from their campus dining halls, it could be from other food vendors on campus, it could be from places in the community like restaurants, supermarkets, farms, and even farmers markets. Anywhere food's going to waste, they're able to rescue and recover that food. And then they take that food and bring it to a central location, again, typically in their dining halls. And then they do some form of cooking where they're going to transform those various donations into balanced meals. Sometimes this could look a lot more just like repurposing or reheating or reportioning of the product that they receive, but some campus kitchens also do a lot of scratch cooking if they're getting a lot of raw product donated. And then they take those meals that they create and they deliver them to various agencies and social services in their community. So this can be anywhere from individuals, families, shelters, after-school programs, older adult housing complexes. It's really up to that school to find where the gaps in services are in their community and how they can support their community agencies and individuals that are suffering from food insecurity and hunger. And so these meals are then used to help those agencies focus all of their time and their effort and their money on their own programs, and so they don't have to worry about the meals. So basically, the big mission of the Campus Kitchens project is to utilize existing assets that are already there to meet needs in their communities. So let's take a look at some of the context to why the Campus Kitchens project was formed. So the issue that first led to the creation of the Campus Kitchens project were those issues of food waste and hunger, and understanding that the reality of those two things really shouldn't exist together. So food insecurity and hunger is clearly a national need. It's something that's seen in almost every community across the country, though it may look different on the surface and have different faces. It is probably undoubtedly, though, something that your community faces, and I'm sure you've heard some similar statistics as you see right now. 1 in 6 Americans and 1 in 5 children don't know where their next meal is coming from. That adds up to about 50 million plus Americans living in food insecure households. Yet at the very same time, 40% of food in the U.S. is wasted each year. That's costing Americans billions of dollars in wasted resources. That's hundreds of thousands of pounds of food that's going to waste each semester that could be used and recovered and served to those who really need it. So that idea of using existing assets, especially on a college campus, and all the things that college campuses have to offer, including students, space, food, it was a really simple idea that made a lot of sense. It was really the best way to address both of these issues at the same time. Let's take a quick look just about kind of campus kitchens by the numbers. So, last school year alone, we had over 23,000 student volunteers that contributed over 75,000 hours of service at their campus kitchens across the country. So these students contributed to the program in many different capacities, from creating and delivering those meals, to rescuing and recovering food, to volunteering or even guiding their programs as members of their leadership team. So those students took recovered food, and recovered over 900,000 pounds of that that would have otherwise gone to waste just last year alone. And then with that food, students then took part in cooking shifts various times throughout the week and prepared and repackaged that donated food into meals. So again, last year alone, our schools were able to prepare over 300,000 meals that were then transported and served to community partners and individuals in need. And last year alone, our campus kitchens across the network fed over 15,000 clients, which added over $1 million of economic value back into those communities that they're serving. And so combined over the almost 14 years in our existence, the Campus Kitchen Network has recovered over 5 million pounds of food that would have otherwise been thrown away, and created and delivered over 2.5 million meals to those in their communities. So you can see clearly by the numbers the impact of the campus kitchens, is truly great. But we are also do a lot more than just focus on meals. So I want to take a little bit of time to talk about another kind of main focus of the Campus Kitchens project. So we encourage all of our students to think about how they can really use that food as a tool to enter into deeper relationships with the clients that they're serving in their communities. So we know there are clearly underlying root causes of hunger that have absolutely nothing to do with being hungry, and these need to be addressed along with meeting the immediate needs with food. So by starting with those meals, students are able to really get their foot in the door and start some relationships with the clients that they're serving, so they can eventually learn about other needs they might have. And so once they've identified those needs that have been identified by the clients themselves, our students are able to create really community-focused programs to meet some of those needs that are really specifically tailored to the community need and the clients that they're serving. So some examples of this and what our campus kitchens are doing, every day across the country, is they're working with their clients and they're creating programs like nutrition education curriculums to work with youth or older adults or even families. They might be working in or creating community gardens and farms as educational platforms for their programs and their clients. They might be conducting health and wellness classes. They might do mentoring and tutoring. They might be doing community dinners for certain populations. It really is limitless the type of programs that our Campus Kitchen students are engaging in with the clients that they're serving their meals to, and it's just taking that extra step to go beyond just meeting that immediate need with food, which is great and obviously necessary and a foundation to this program. But where the true impact really lies is what our students and our schools really do with those relationships and how they can continue to address some of those root causes of hunger and poverty that are keeping folks in that cycle. So why start a campus kitchen? Why use the campus kitchen model? There are tons of benefits, I think, to joining a national network, and there's tons of benefits not only for the school, but for students and kind of everyone involved. And just to highlight a few here, a campus kitchen increases the student's commitment to service on campus, which that commitment to service is something that I think most universities and colleges are looking for, and have something to that degree written into their 10-year plan and in their mission statements about what their students are going to gain from their educational experience beyond just the classroom. So lots of schools see that as huge value and a huge investment in their students' overall education. Lots of schools also are recognized both locally and nationally for their involvement in the community and their involvement in addressing these issues of hunger from a community development standpoint, but also from a sustainability standpoint on their own campus. Obviously, there's tons of different service learning opportunities through the Campus Kitchens project, with working with different classes on campus and providing really meaningful service opportunities for students that are interested in a variety of topics and a variety of disciplines. Again, the Campus Kitchens project really has the proven ability to really bridge that gap, that town and gown gap that many institutions face with their communities, and they're able to break down some of those barriers and some of those stigmas and stereotypes that are being held from both sides, and really is a non-typical type of service program for our college campus in the fact that it really is a intentional and long-term relationship that's being built through these partnerships that the Campus Kitchen has. And then lastly, obviously, the student leadership development aspect of a campus kitchen is huge. We're preparing students with really relevant real-life experience that not only they can use in the classroom while they're in school, but also to be able to supplement for future jobs and be able to help them get jobs and have some really relevant work and real-world experience. So to talk just a little bit more about that student leadership development piece, we have been, over the last few years, really diving into, what are our students gaining from interacting and being a part of our program. And we've had some really staggering results come back from some of those surveys. And the fact that 90+% of students involved with Campus Kitchens felt much more confident with their leadership abilities. They also, about 90%, also felt like they used knowledge that they gained through Campus Kitchen in real-world situations after school. Nearly all of those surveyed said that they will be more likely to address food insecurity in their communities after graduation, and nearly half of those surveyed said that their participation in the program has really changed their entire career path moving forward. You can see that this type of program really resonates and is really impactful for the students and even the staff that are participating in each campus. All right, so that's just a brief overview of the Campus Kitchens project, but let's focus now the rest of our time here, talking about the launch grant video competition that's coming up. So this grant is available to any school that's interested in starting a campus kitchen and also interested in serving, at least in some part, an older adult community in their community. So that's a 50+ population that might be suffering from food insecurity. So why focus on older adults? So the reason we see such a value in focusing on older adults is we have a wonderful partner, the AARP Foundation, and they are working to really win back opportunity for those struggling Americans that are 50+, that are really being forced to face these issues today, like hunger and lack of housing or income, or even isolation or lack of transportation. And here at the Campus Kitchens Project, we really understand that our network has the potential to really impact some of these issues, especially hunger and isolation that affect so many older adults across the country. So we partnered up with AARP for the last few years to hopefully address some of these issues that many older adults are facing across the country. So each school, again, that receives one of these grants will have to serve some portion of an older adult community, but you can clearly still serve other populations like youth or even students, but some portion of that needs to be older adults. All right, so let's go and jump into the specifics of how to actually apply for this grant. The application process for this grant is pretty straightforward, but also a little bit non-traditional in terms of compared to some other types of grant applications you might have seen. The main part of this application consists of obtaining 4 letters of support, which I'm going to talk about at length in just a moment. But it's good to remember, again, and I'll say this again later, that this grant is to be used for the planning as well as the launching of a campus kitchen. So these support letters just show that you have the foundation in place to support a campus kitchen, not that you've actually done all of the logistical planning that goes into that. That can happen after you receive a grant. That's what it's really intended for. So let's talk about these letters. So the first letter of support is a letter of student support. So here you need to show that you've gained support from students on your campus to help with obviously be the volunteer base, but also be the student leadership team that's really guiding and leading this initiative on campus. You can upload this letter of support from just a few key student leaders or an existing student group that's going to support the program, or even working with an existing class that might be supporting and starting this type of program. But the key here is to show that you have a good base of student support that are going to be able to go through the planning process and also be leaders once the campus kitchen has started. So if you're even just a student listening, you can start this, and you can even submit a letter of your support showing that you're going to be the key student leader or leaders for this initiative. Secondly, a letter of support from what we call a sponsoring office. So every campus kitchen, in addition to having a student leadership team, also has a staff sponsor or advisor. And this is for the purpose of the kind of long-term sustainability of the program. While we know that the students are going to be the ones with the main kind of driving force of the program, we want it to be something that lasts for years and years and years. And so that being tied back to the school and that institution itself is really important. So typically this office of the sponsoring office can fall under an office of service or civic engagement or maybe campus ministry, or could also be a department, maybe social work or nutrition if you have those type of departments on your campus. But it's basically important to find a office or department and a key staff person that's going to take on that role of the staff support. Their involvement on a day-to-day basis can really vary, but they're there to provide a clear foundation and tie back to the school to, again, like I said, ensure that long-term sustainability of the program. All right, talk a little bit about the third letter of support for this grant application is a letter of dining support. So here you need to receive support from your dining service provider. Typically, you're going to be working with a general manager or a director of your dining services at your institution. So they should agree to a few things, ideally. Ideally, they should agree to help provide food donations from their meal service when they can. And they should also agree to hopefully provide use of their kitchen space and ideally some storage space in terms of a refrigerator or freezer for you to store the food that you're recovering, and also be able to use their space to prep and cook and create those meals that you are going to be delivering to the community. It should be noted here, though, that some campus kitchens don't always use their dining space because maybe you have a 24/7 dining hall, or maybe the space is just very limited. But in that case, many of these campus kitchens are able to find additional kitchen space, maybe on campus, maybe a catering kitchen, an athletics kitchen, a departmental kitchen, or maybe finding a space on or near campus, maybe through a church or another community center. But again, it's important to talk with dining first to see if they're able to support the program in those various capacities, and then look into other places if need be. All right, the fourth and final letter of support is a letter of intent to sign our contract. So here you're obtaining the approval for the campus kitchen from the institution itself. So you're working here now. You're going to have the school review and agree to sign our licensing agreement and our contract agreement by having them sign a letter of intent, which basically means that in order to ensure that your school can actually receive the grant money, if you win the grant competition, we need to have the school pre-vet and approve our contract that they would be signing anyways when you join the campus kitchen network. So the person that typically signs this letter of intent is a school administrator, such as a president or a VP or a dean, and oftentimes the school's legal counsel and legal team will also have to review this contract prior to signing. So this can take a little bit of time, but if you already have a strong support system from a sponsoring office and other folks on campus, they can help connect you with the proper administrators that would need to review a contract like this that's going to be signed on behalf of the institution itself. All right, so all this information and all the resources to help with these letters, including template letters, example letters, feasibility studies and plans for dining and for your sponsoring office, can all be found on our tool called the Campus Kitchen Planner, which is a really great online tool, which, like I said, houses all of the initial planning documents, but also houses all of our documents and all the steps that need to be completed to actually create your campus kitchen. But the great thing is, though, that obtaining these letters of support for the grant are already the first steps in planning a strong campus kitchen, regardless if you're applying for this grant or not. So by going through this grant process, application process, you're not really doing anything that's unnecessary. You're really, again, getting that foundational support in place, which is one of the biggest steps in the process. So you'll not only, be able then, but by doing this, by applying for this grant, you'll not only be able to potentially receive funding, but you're also really setting yourself up for guaranteed success with the future of your campus kitchen. So much so, in fact, that every single school that has completed these 4 steps in the past when we've done competitions, regardless if they've actually won a grant or not, have still ended up launching their campus kitchen. All right, so let's talk a little bit. The final piece of this grant application, which I think is actually the fun part, is a video submission. So after you've obtained those 4 letters of support that I just explained, you'll then submit a short, less than 3-minute long video that describes the need in your community, also highlighting any older adult hunger needs that you are going to address, and then explain how a campus kitchen is going to meet that need. The cool thing, again, I think about this grant is that we don't actually choose the winners. It's all up to you guys. So it's really all in the school's hands. So all the video submissions will qualify to participate in our launch grant video competition. It's a week-long voting competition where the schools compete for the most votes. So we host all the videos on our voting site that you see on the screen now. And then you rally your campus and your community, friends and family to try to get those top spots. And then at the end of the week, the top 3 schools with the most votes will each receive a $5,000 grant, which I'm going to talk a little bit more at the end of the presentation. So these competitions are really the perfect way to also promote your soon-to-be campus kitchen and really galvanize your future stakeholders and volunteers and potential funders. The more excitement you build up for your campus kitchen during the competition, the more votes you can get, and the better off you're really going to be when you actually launch your program. In fact, we've seen some very, very tiny schools beat out some really huge schools because they were able to really get their whole campus behind their effort. All right, so let's take a look at some of the deadlines and the specifics about this grant. So the first deadline for those 4 letters of support is February 5th. Again, I want to remind you that you don't have to have your whole campus kitchen planned out by then, but again, just show that you have the foundational support from those 4 groups to support that campus kitchen. I should also note that I realize that February 5th is coming up in just 3 weeks or so, and that can be somewhat of a tight turnaround. So as long as there is some flexibility with those dates, as long as you do have at least all 4 of those in motion. Maybe you might be waiting to hear back from an administrator or waiting to hear back from your dining service provider. As long as you have those letters in motion, we can work with you guys to set alternative extended deadlines. That being said, the video submission should be submitted to us no later than February 19th. And then the actual competition for voting runs March 7th through the 14th. So again, you see there's a little bit of room in between with that month used for flexibility and getting all those final pieces put together. So do note that you have plenty of time to still get some of or all of these letters completed. All right, one other piece to note is that if you do receive one of these grants, you need to launch your program, actually start your program by the end of September 2016. So again, that's lots of time to plan out the rest of the logistics of your program. So even if you feel like you're just getting started with a lot of this, as long as you can get that initial buy-in from those key groups, you still have plenty of time to figure out the logistics of your program with support from us the entire way. So here's a recommended timeline, which I know we've already passed some of these dates here, but I think, like I said before, there's still quite a bit of time. But just to look at kind of the order of operations here, if you're just starting from the very beginning, would be to reach out to student groups to help lead this planning. Again, it could just be 2, 3, 4 students that really feel like they're going to be dedicated to getting this up and running. And just so getting that kind of initial planning leadership team together is the first really important piece. Also, kind of simultaneously reaching out to potential sponsoring offices, so potential staff that are going to be able to advise and help kind of lead this program as well. So, if you don't have any ideas initially, reaching out to, again, those offices of service learning, civic engagement are great places to start, but you might already have some other ideas that might work well. We have some great tools on the planner to help kind of assess the feasibility of particular sponsoring offices and kind of have them go through a checklist of what they might potentially need to be a good sponsor. But again, getting those students and that staff are really the first pieces. And once you have a good couple students and a staff person that's on board, then starting to reach out to dining is a great next step. So setting up meetings with a general manager or a director of your dining service provider is kind of a good next step there. Also, then they start to think about, using your sponsoring office staff person to hopefully make some connections within administration, or a dean or a VP that can start their process of reviewing our letter of intent. Once that kind of is going, obviously solidifying on one sponsoring office, and then obviously giving some time to get our letter of intent in the hands of the legal team that needs to review, and they can edit it and give it back to us with, here are the edits where we would feel comfortable signing this agreement. That way we have some time for us to review it on our end and kind of work out an agreement there. About that time, next steps is really solidifying your partnership with dining and or any other place that you might be utilizing for their space or for food donations. And then obviously finalizing and reviewing the letter of intent and submitting all those letters and the video should happen in February, and then the competition is in March. All right, so lastly, let's just chat a bit about the actual grant and those specifics. So like I said before, there are 3 grantees that will each receive a $5,000 grant, which is payable in increments that you see on the screen here in 4 different installments. So the first installment is delivered immediately upon signing our license agreement, which it will give you a $1,500 to either be used for a student planning fellow stipend or for other costs that you might need to utilize it for upon initially starting your planning. We've seen, though, that being able to identify one key student planning fellow is a great way to kind of really continue the momentum moving forward with the rest of your planning process. But we realize sometimes that may not be necessary, but that is what it is ideally used for, but we can definitely talk through other options for that initial funding. The second installment comes out after you've gotten to the point where you're ready to start purchasing any supplies or equipment that your campus kitchen might need. A lot of kind of one-time initial startup costs in terms of, hard equipment, delivery bags, maybe kind of disposable things you might need. There's that $800 installment is used for that. Then the third installment is actually to be received in an in-kind format, where when you're actually ready to launch your program and start your campus kitchen, we send one of our staff members from the national office to do an official in-person training and startup launch visit. So money, part of that $1,200 is used for that visit. Any additional funding that's not used for that visit is given to you and the school, lumped in with the final installment of $1,500, which is to be distributed upon a successful launch of your program, and can really be used for just the continued sustainability of your program. All right, so that really sums up all the specifics about this grant. You can find more information about the grant and all the things that I discussed on this webinar on the link you see on the screen here. And also, if you haven't already gotten access to the Campus Kitchen Planner, if you go to our website, campuskitchens.org, you'll see a Start a Kitchen tab on the top page, and you can request access for your very own Campus Kitchen Planner, which again houses all of our documents and resources and planning tools to help with this process. So and again, if anyone would like to then set up a future conversation with me on an individual basis, to maybe talk through some of the things going on at your campus and talk through and brainstorm ways to make this grant timeline work and to see if it's feasible, feel free to reach out to me anytime via email or phone. But I could also take any questions. If anyone has questions right now, I'd be more than happy to take them if you'd like to either say them out loud or also type them in the chat box. Feel free to do that right now. And again, if you're still kind of thinking about some things and want to talk to other folks, feel free to reach out to me with any questions anytime. My email is mschnarr@campuskitchens.org. And if not, I appreciate you guys taking some time this afternoon, and I hope to hear from you, and hope you consider applying for this grant. Thanks.